Welcome back to another brand new episode of Pixel Peek. Thanks so much for tuning in.
We know we said that we would go live this past Sunday evening at 8 in last week's episode, but due to unfortunate circumstances out of our control, we are postponing our first live episode to go after spring break. We apologize if you were looking forward to it.
In the meantime, we have some really interesting news stories coming up in this week's episode. First up is an interesting follow-up to last week's story on Activision Blizzard's withdrawal from the GeForce Now service, and it seems like more publishers are backing out of it this week.
There's also a National Video Game Museum opening in the UK that's making some pretty interesting moves to preserve gaming history, like a living indoor arcade that feels like it's straight out of the 80s.
Platinum Games are also made an exciting video game announcement of a game that they are self-publishing. Bayonetta 3 is still on the way, and there's a lot of progress being made on it, but this new title looks pretty cool and is definitely worth checking out.
Bianca has returned for good as this week's game reviewer, which is on the rather bleak but insightful game about life, Mosaic.
And for this week's Xbox Analyst Bobby Padgett is joining us in the studio to talk about some recent details surrounding Xbox's next-gen console, the Xbox Series X. It is hard to believe that by the end of this year, we will be seeing significant improvements of the current-gen consoles.
I'm excited to get into this week's episode, so let's get started. I'm Kristen Lawrence.
And I'm Bryce Gates, and we hope you enjoy your stay here on Pixel Peek. Bethesda Softworks has pulled games from GeForce Now shortly following Activision Blizzard's fallout from the platform last week. The removal was first announced in NVIDIA's forums by NVIDIA community manager Corey Banks. Last week, NVIDIA attributed to Activision Blizzard's departure from the service to a misunderstanding based on the idea that the publisher's participation in the trial would extend to the full service. Since then, a post on NVIDIA's blog detailed the more publishers may be leaving NVIDIA's GeForce Now service. General Manager Phil Eisler was stated on NVIDIA's blog, "As we approach a paid service, some publishers may choose to remove games before the trial period ends. Ultimately, they may control over their content and decide whether the game you purchase includes streaming on GeForce Now." Eisler believes that some games will come back to GeForce Now once the publishers realize the value of the service, and additional games will still be added to GeForce Now each week. However, as more publishers bow out of the service, GeForce Now's success could see a troubling future.
Facebook has acquired Sanzaru Games, developer of Asgard's Wrath. Sanzaru will continue to operate as an independent studio while joining Facebook's Oculus Studios in a move that mirrors the company's acquisition of Beat Games last year. Facebook Director of Content Mike Verdu praised the work of Sanzaru and its ability to release 4 games for Oculus since 2016. Verdu ended his statement saying that the vast majority of Sanzaru employees are joining Oculus Studios. Along with the transition, an unknown number of employees will be leaving the company due to certain projects at Sanzaru no longer being worked on. Facebook declined to give a comment on how many employees would not be joining Oculus Studios. Sanzaru was founded in 2007 and has 3 offices between California and Ontario. Outside of VR, Sanzaru has worked on Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time, Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal, and Sonic Boom Fire and Ice.
The United Kingdom's National Video Game Museum is collecting a network of museums, collectors, and other resources dedicated to video game preservation. The MVM formed the Video Game Heritage Society, a group that will share knowledge and how to best preserve and display the history of video games. The project was announced at the British Film Institute, and the members of the society included the BFI, the British Library, the Museum of London, the National Science and Media Museum in Bradford, Bath Spa University, and several other independent collectors. The MVM had started to invest game preservation for classic games developed in the UK. Displaying them in the museum, Ian Livingstone, the chair of the British Games Institute, which overlooks the MVM, commented saying, "We recognize that in the UK and around the world, the expertise in the field isn't just locked inside museums and heritage institutions, but also inside a wide range of dedicated and passionate private collectors. The VHS will bring everyone together to preserve the important heritage of the video games in our country." Current exhibits at the MVM include a timeline of consoles, starting with the Magnavox Odyssey to now and a look into an 80s arcade.
Earlier this week, FIFA professional player Kurt0411 Finch was banned by Electronic Arts from playing any of their games competitively or accessing their live events. This announcement came 4 months after Finch was banned from attending the FIFA 20 Global Series event and other future competitions due to code of conduct violations. On Twitter, EA released a statement explaining the ban for these actions was due to Finch threatening employees and other players. Finch was also revealed to be encouraging his followers on social media to amplify this behavior. Part of EA's statement includes, "We will not tolerate threatening behavior. As a result, today, Kurt0411's EA account will be banned from playing our games and accessing our services due to these serious and repeated violations. We build games and communities for players to have fun. Creating a safe and enjoyable experience for everyone without fear of harassment or abuse is a vital part of that." After EA's release of this statement, Finch has released his own response on Twitter saying, "End of the day, I have never said anything I shouldn't have. This is just deeper than anyone thinks." Regardless of the ban from competitions, Finch continues to stream FIFA on Twitch with over 100,000 followers and more than 1 million channel views.
Platinum Games announced a new project through a teaser trailer this week. The new game is currently being called Project GG, and the trailer shows a city being attacked by a giant unseen creature and a mysterious hero coming to fight back. The end of the trailer implies a theme based around the robots versus monsters movie genre. In the past, Platinum Games has always published their games through third parties, but Project GG is the first self-published game from Platinum Games. By self-publishing, Platinum Games is able to control every part of their new IP, like whether or not it gets a sequel and what game consoles it is being released on. The trailer mentions in Project GG is the third game of director Hideki Kamiya's Hero Trilogy. His two earlier games, Beautiful Joe and Wonderful 101, are currently being a Kickstarter to get a newly remastered version, which will also be self-published for the Nintendo Switch, the PC, and the PlayStation 4. As for Project GG, there is no information out at this time for when it will be released or when the official name of the game will be revealed.
Amid concerns of a coronavirus outbreak, more video game firms have backed out of the Game Developers Conference and PAX East. Employees of Cyberpunk 2077 and the Witcher developer CD Projekt Red revealed on Twitter that the trip has been canceled due to concern over the spread of COVID-19. North American community manager Stephanie Bayer commented saying the company was mitigating travel risks and trying to keep the team healthy. PUBG Core told GameSpot that it was also canceling an event for fans that was set to be hosted in Boston alongside PAX. A spokesperson commented saying, "We will be rescheduling this plan for an upcoming event once the coronavirus is under control and travel returns to normal." CD Projekt Red and PUBG Core are the latest companies to drop out of PAX East, and this comes after following the decision made by Sony, Capcom, and Square Enix to either cancel or limit plans surrounding attendance. Electronic Arts also decided to pull out from the Game Developer Conference next month in San Francisco. Now joining Sony, Kojima Productions, and Facebook, all studios will also not be present at GDC due to concerns surrounding coronavirus. A spokesperson commented saying, "Having closely followed the global situation with coronavirus and with the recent escalation of cases in new regions, we have decided to take additional steps to protect the well-being of our employees, including the restriction of all non-essential travel. As a result, we are also canceling our official participation at GDC and limiting attendance to other events. We are continuing to monitor the situation and will adjust guidelines to our employees as we feel is appropriate." As of now, the number of reported cases of coronavirus have reached 80,000 since December, with more than 2,500 deaths as a result of the disease. That's all we have for this week's news, so let's pass the mic on over to Bianca Bortoluzzi for this week's game review.
Video games aren't always full of action. Sometimes they can be bleak and boring, or colorful and insightful. They can tackle topics like escapism, social pressure, and the loneliness of adulthood. And this week I experienced that alternative approach to video games as an artistic and educational medium. Let's dive into the world of a silent protagonist and help them figure out their way through life in this week's game review of Mosaic. Mosaic takes place in a bleak, lifeless world in which you play as a mute protagonist who goes through the daily struggle of waking up, going to work, performing their duties, and going back to bed. You struggle with money, love, friendship, and even making it to work on time. Mosaic was developed by Krillbite and published by Raw Games. The game was developed to show that there's more to life than just being a cog in a machine. Everything is pretty sad in this game. Seriously, I was playing it with a pretty grim face throughout most of it. Anything that isn't involved with color and human interaction is just sad and hard to play through because, that could be anyone's future. I mean, personally, I'm not gonna let it be mine, but that's what this game is all about. You start off in bed, forcing the protagonist to get up. It seems that the protagonist doesn't even have time to change, they're that tired after a day of working. Odd things happen throughout the game as well, such as getting distracted by glowing machinery and then being sucked in, random bursts of color and music, and even a fish that likes to talk to the protagonist about what they need to do to help themselves. You can control what the protagonist says and what actions they take as well. If you don't want to grab that umbrella, you don't have to. If you don't want to check your bills, you don't have to. At first, I found the game to be boring. I didn't really want to play it after a while. However, the thing with this game is that you need to get invested. You can't just play it just to play it. Thinking about my own future and how it could turn out like this had me feel in some type of way. It forced me to push myself to work harder for our genderless, nameless protag. There isn't much you can do, however. You're forced to stick to just a few things, from brushing your teeth to checking the fridge, sitting down, fixing your hair and tie, checking your phone, and that's about it. This forces the mundane experience to be that much more mundane. The first breath of fresh air is when our protag walks towards a window and feels the sun. You know, when you stop for a moment and get warmed by the sun. Isn't that a phenomenal feeling? Then, suddenly, they're launched into the sky, looking at the beautiful sunset before coming back down and having to go about their drab day. Mosaic does an excellent job of showing different perspectives and feelings to how isolated, anxious, and depressing everyday life can be. From running around like a small ant trying to avoid being crushed by oncoming stomping feet to feeling compact and crushed together like a small box. At the end of every workday, they even fall back into these deep, dark waters, sinking deeper and deeper with each new day finished. Eventually, a red-like substance falls from the protag, assuming it's blood. The tiny orange fish that tags along with them even calls them out on it, asking why they don't switch up their daily routine and find some friends, and explains how nice it would be to have some time for themselves for once instead of always relying on work. Now, when the protag did change it up, the game was beautiful, colorful, musical, and sweet. They saved a cat, felt like they were a butterfly, listened to wonderful music, and took time out of their day to enjoy the sweeter things in life. It was always a nice break from the extremely dull world they live in. One of my favorite aspects about the game was the work the protag would have to do. I know technically it's supposed to be frustrating and boring, but I couldn't help but enjoy it. I'm a puzzle person, and I really enjoy minigames. I like building things up like that and taking care of viruses. Would I do it as an everyday job? Absolutely not. But in the game, and the few levels in which you have to complete the job, it was fun. The job is basically to apply resources along a hex grid in the most efficient manner to feed, do you hear those quotation marks, the milestone you're trying to reach. Viruses can sometimes come along and attack your grid, forcing your work to be delayed, and it could get frustrating at times, but nothing was extremely difficult. In fact, nothing about this game was difficult per se. It was extremely easy. The only thing I never fully understood was the stock market app you can download within the game on your phone. I've never been super invested in the stock market in real life, so I had no idea how to make it work, but I managed to get our sweet protag out of debt. On the other hand, I really enjoyed Blip Blop, a silly little game that the protag plays on their phone, a feature that I found very interesting. Every game I've played, when the character checks their phone, it brings you into a menu and the game is paused. In Mosaic, however, you could walk with your phone and use it at the same time, much like we do in the real world. I really felt it when he almost dropped his phone into the street. I didn't have any issues with the game overall. One thing that stood out to me in particular was how laggy the game was, though. At times, it would freeze for a moment, then start back up, and it would kind of ruin really pretty, serious scenes. It did just come out for the PS4 though, so perhaps it's simply still a tad buggy. It wasn't a huge issue, it was just a bit of a nuisance at times, really. The only other thing would be how bored I felt while playing it. As mentioned, you have to really get into the game, but it's hard to stay involved in a game that makes you feel a little sad about the future. All in all, I enjoyed playing the game. It had a gorgeous ending that I felt fitted really well and was a nice little game to play on a rainy afternoon, as it's only about a 2 to 3 hour gameplay. I would recommend this game to anyone who wants a break from the never-ending difficulties of other harder games. Overall, I'd say this was a great game. The bleakness of it all didn't ruin the game whatsoever. There was an excellent contrast of feeling like you're drowning to feeling like you're on top of the world. For only being their third game, Krillbite did an excellent job at developing Mosaic.
Mosaic was a short game, but there was a lot of emotion jam-packed into it. Although it wasn't incredibly interesting at times, it was well worth the playthrough. An emotional ending helped sell the idea that we should maybe disconnect and take a look around us every now and then, and that's why I rated Mosaic a great game. That's all I have for this week's game review, so I'll pass it on to Sydney and Bobby for this week's analysis.
The future of gaming is on the horizon with the next generation of consoles, and both Xbox and PlayStation have some pretty big plans. Over the past week, we've learned a lot about Xbox entry into next-gen gaming, and here to talk to us about what was revealed is our Xbox analyst Bobby Padgett. Thanks for joining us, Bobby.
Thank you for having me, Sydney.
So what exactly is Xbox Series X?
So basically, Xbox Series X, it was announced in E3 2019 as Project Scarlet. It'd be coming out holiday 2020, so this year. Basically, all we knew about was that. But at the Game Awards in December, they formally announced Project Scarlet would be the Xbox One Series X, and it'd be this beefy console right here that looks kind of like a Square Amazon Alexa with an Xbox logo in the corner.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So since Project Scarlet's announcement at E3 2019, Xbox has been keeping us updated with features of their next-gen console. What did we know about Xbox Series X up until this week?
So basically, we knew that it would be having a 8K resolution. We knew that it would have a 120 hertz refresh rate, and thanks to that photo, a photo that surfaced a while back, we actually got to look at the back ports to see a solid-state drive port. That it would only have one HDMI port, which would make it primarily for gaming instead of for gaming and hooking up a cable box to run through it like the original Xbox One was. And that's pretty much it. I mean, up until December, we didn't even know that it was called Xbox Series X.
Yeah, interesting. There was an article published on Xbox Wire, Xbox's official news site, that revealed some more details about Microsoft's next-gen console. What are some of its new features?
So, one of the big new features is that it's got, it computes with about 12 teraflops of power, which, for those of you who don't know, the Xbox One X has 6 teraflops, so it is double the power of the most powerful Xbox console so far on the market. It has a hardware-accelerated ray tracing, so it makes environments look a lot realer. Let's see here. Variable rate shading, which basically allows developers to focus on certain aspects of what is on frame. Say if you want to look at a character, they can let the background be a little fuzzy, but mainly focus on making sure the character looks good, which allows for a more consistent frame rate. There's a new quick resume feature and the new smart delivery systems.
Okay, so what's special about the quick resume feature compared to other consoles we know today?
So most consoles today, the way their quick resume works is that you're playing a game
and say you want to buy a piece of DLC that just dropped for a different game, or you want to go change your settings in the console, you can hit a home button and it will take you out of the game, suspend the game that you're playing, and you can go to the store or you can play around with the home menu or the settings. However, with this quick resume feature, you can do that with multiple games. So you can be playing Halo Infinite and then you're like, I'm not sure if I'm really feeling that, I'm losing in Halo Infinite multiplayer. Gears is always nice, and then you can pause it, put it in suspend mode, and go play Gears.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. So Smart Delivery sounds interesting too. What is that all about?
So it's kind of like the Play Anywhere program that Xbox has been implementing between their Windows 10 and Xbox One systems, where basically if you want to purchase a game on Xbox One or PC, you then can play it on the opposite system. With this, it's mainly kind of designed more for like early games, like Halo Infinite, that I know will be that they said will be available for Xbox One and Series X at launch. But say you're not an early adopter, you prefer to play on your Xbox One, you can buy a game, certain games for your Xbox One, and then you buy it once, and you have it for Xbox One, but when you get a Series X, you can then own it on the Series X.
Dude, that's so cool.
It's amazing.
So last season we covered a news story on Xbox All Access, a subscription plan for people buying a new Xbox. For those that are interested, is it better to wait until the Xbox Series X releases, or is it worthwhile for fans to get on the Xbox bandwagon now?
So really, I would say probably wait, but at least wait until E3 this year to try to do anything of that sort, because there's not that much we know about the Xbox Series X. We haven't seen a lot of gameplay with it. And really and truly, a lot of times with Xbox's consoles, they're not necessarily, the first iteration isn't necessarily always the best one, looking at the 360 especially.
Yeah.
So it could do very well to wait, especially if you already own an Xbox One, because then you have the smart delivery feature.
That's very smart. Xbox is planning to feature Series X at E3 this year. Do you have any personal wishes for Xbox Series X before it's released at the tail end of this year?
I want to see, I'm just going to say this because A, I'm a huge Halo fan, and B, because it's the first time a Halo game has launched with an Xbox since the first Xbox in 2001, but I want to see the gameplay of Halo Infinite. It's got a brand new engine, it's supposed to be designed specifically for the Series X to take as much advantage with that hardware as possible, so I feel like if anything would be a good, anything would be a good benchmark, I feel like that would be a good one.
I can definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
That's all for this week's analysis, so let's pass it on to Kristen and Bryce to wrap up this week's episode.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Pixel Peek. We hope you enjoyed it.
It's only been 2 episodes, but I'm already getting the hang of this host thing. I can't wait to deliver the news again next week.
Actually, next week's episode is something a little different because we here at AppTV have spring break.
Oh, right! Man, I was really looking forward to it.
It's okay, Bryce. You'll get an opportunity to be on camera for our fans again soon. Next Wednesday's special episode is sure to be a smashing time.
And you can catch that special episode along with our regular episodes every Wednesday afternoon at 3 on watchapptv.com, Sky Best channels 20 and 1020, Spectrum channel 198, or on App State's campus television channel 23.3. Once we go live next week, you can catch us on those same channels, but on Sunday at 8 p.m. instead.
And of course, we couldn't have put together this week's episode without our incredible crew. Thanks to writers Jalen Curtin and Rebecca Larson, game reviewer Bianca Bortoluzzi, Xbox Analyst Bobby Padgett, and producers Tanner Mazzell, Elise Taylor, and Sydney Thompson for another week of classic Pixel Peek content.
Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed your stay here on Pixel Peek.